Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that everyone around you, the people you trust, the people you call friends, are quietly holding you back. They smile, they laugh, they speak as if they're on your side. But every word, every action, every hidden motive is slowing your rise, draining your focus, and stealing your destiny while you politely look the other way. You felt it, the tension in your spirit, the heaviness in your chest, the quiet whisper telling you something isn't right. And yet, you keep giving them your time, your energy, your life, hoping that somehow they'll change, that somehow you can carry them to where you're meant to go. Stop. God doesn't call you to wait for permission to grow, and He doesn't send angels disguised as chains. The moment you recognize who belongs in your life and who doesn't is the moment your path clears, your power returns, and your destiny demands attention. In the next 60 seconds, you're going to see exactly why cutting ties, breaking patterns, and reclaiming your energy isn't optional. It's survival, it's war. It's what separates those who rise from those who stay buried in someone else's limitations. This is your wake-up call. Everything you've tolerated has led to this second, and if you ignore it now, the cost is everything you're meant to become not. Everyone in your life was sent by God. Some were sent to delay your destiny, and the most dangerous part is that they don't walk in with horns or warnings. They walk in with comfort, familiarity, and patterns you've already learned to tolerate. You feel the drain every time they speak, every time they show up, every time you shrink yourself just to maintain peace in a relationship God has been trying to break for years. And deep down, you know it. You felt the tension in your spirit, the heaviness after conversations, the subtle erosion of your confidence, your focus, your fire. That isn't coincidence. Your soul recognizes what your heart keeps excusing. There are people who attach themselves not because they support your destiny, but because they fear their own, and they cling to you to avoid confronting their stagnation. They disguise their insecurity as concern, their doubt as realism, their sabotage as love, and you've been swallowing it to avoid looking rude, ungrateful, or changed. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. Your life cannot accelerate while you are yoked to someone who only moves in circles. God has been sending warnings through your frustration, through your lost time, through your emotional exhaustion, through those moments when you want to rise but feel chained to someone who has no intention of growing. Some people were never meant to go with you, not because they are evil, but because their presence interrupts the frequency of what God is trying to build in you. And the longer you stay connected to someone who's not aligned with your calling, the more you'll confuse loyalty with spiritual imprisonment. You think you're being patient, understanding, compassionate, but what you're actually being is delayed. God can open doors, but the wrong person will keep your hand too full to walk through them. You can pray for clarity, but clarity means nothing if you keep ignoring the red flags wrapped in familiarity. The destiny God designed for you requires strength, focus, and obedience, and there are people who weaken all three without ever raising their voice or showing their intentions. Your spirit has been whispering the truth, but whispers don't move you anymore, so now life is shouting. Every setback, every distraction, every emotional crash is a divine alarm telling you that proximity is not the same as purpose, and comfort is not the same as calling. You already know who this paragraph is talking about. You've always known. And the moment you stop pretending you don't, everything in your life will shift. A person who treats your growth as a threat will eventually treat your success as an enemy. And the painful truth is that you've already seen the signs. You just didn't want to believe them. You've watched their smile tighten every time you leveled up, felt the room shift when you spoke about something you were proud of, sensed the quiet jealousy hiding behind their fake encouragement. They don't clap for you because your progress exposes their stagnation, and instead of being inspired by your rise, they feel judged by it, as if your evolution is a personal attack on their comfort zone. These are the people who pretend to support you but secretly hope you don't go too far, who applaud you only when your wins are small enough, not to threaten their ego, who subtly plant doubt in your mind to slow you down just enough so they can keep the illusion of being equal. They want a version of you that stays predictable, manageable, and familiar because your growth forces them to confront everything they've ignored in themselves. And what's worse is that you've been shrinking, dimming, holding back, trying not to intimidate them with your potential, thinking you're being humble when really you're being spiritually handcuffed. God never designed your purpose to fit someone else's insecurity, and you cannot carry your calling while tiptoeing around someone who fears your greatness more than they respect your journey. Every time you share your dream with them and feel their energy drop, every time you reach for something higher and they respond with sarcasm or silence, every time they minimize your achievements as lucky or not that serious, your spirit is being warned that proximity to them is poisoning your momentum. You cannot grow under a jealous eye, you cannot thrive in an atmosphere of quiet competition, and you cannot rise with someone who only feels tall when you stay small. And here's the truth that stings the most. The same person who can't celebrate your growth today will sabotage your success tomorrow, not always out of malice, but out of fear that your destiny will expose the limits they placed on their own life. The longer you keep them close, the more you will soften your shine just to keep the peace. But peace built on self-betrayal is not peace, it's bondage. And deep down, you already know that God is pulling you away because the next level of your life cannot be shared with someone who resents the very elevation He's giving you. Anyone who normalizes sin will slowly destroy your sensitivity to God. And the frightening part is that it never happens all at once. It happens in small compromises, tiny shifts, quiet permissions you give yourself because someone you trust told you it's not that deep. You start laughing at what once convicted you, participating in what once made you uneasy, tolerating what once made you drop to your knees in prayer. And it's never the devil who walks up boldly and announces his intentions. It's people who seem harmless, fun, relatable, easy to be around, people who make disobedience feel casual and consequences feel imaginary. They don't drag you into darkness, they make the darkness feel normal. They wrap rebellion in humor, wrap disobedience in convenience, wrap spiritual decay in the illusion of relax, live a little. And before you know it, the voice of God that used to roar in your spirit is now a faint whisper you barely hear. You weren't defeated, you were desensitized. And it started with one person who convinced you that the standards God set for you were too much, that conviction was old-fashioned, that holiness was extreme, and that your hunger for God made them uncomfortable. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. Your environment shapes your appetite. The more you surround yourself with people who treat sin like a joke, the more you train yourself to ignore the spiritual alarms God placed inside you. What used to break your heart now barely gets your attention. What used to keep you up at night now fits into your schedule. And what used to draw you closer to God now feels unnecessary because someone influenced you to believe your calling doesn't require discipline. But the higher the calling, the stricter the path. And the people who refuse to honor that path will always try to pull you off it, not because they hate you, but because your conviction confronts their compromise. Your light exposes their shadows. Your pursuit of God highlights the emptiness of their shortcuts. And instead of rising with you, they would rather drag you down to a level where neither of you feels convicted anymore. That's why God warns you, not to isolate you, but to protect the part of you the enemy wants numbed. Because once your sensitivity to God dies, everything else in your life becomes negotiable. And the person who taught you to ignore conviction becomes the quiet thief of your destiny. A chronic complainer is a silent killer of faith. And the most dangerous part is how quickly their negativity becomes the background noise of your life, shaping your mindset without you ever realizing it. You start absorbing their hopelessness, their fear, their bitterness, their defeated language until suddenly you're not dreaming the way you used to, not believing the way you used to, not fighting the way you used to, because every day you've been breathing in someone else's doubt like secondhand smoke. Their words may sound harmless, just frustrations, just venting, just being real, but spiritually they are injecting poison into your perspective, slowly replacing your expectation for God with a constant expectation for disappointment. You don't notice it at first. It shows up in small ways. You pray with less conviction. You hesitate when opportunities show up. You start expecting the worst, so you won't be let down, just like they taught you. And the tragedy is that you think you're thinking for yourself, but you're not. You're rethinking with the mind of someone who gave up on their own life a long time ago. Complainers drain rooms, drain dreams, drain destiny without ever raising their voice, because their negativity creates an atmosphere where faith can't breathe. They kill momentum by focusing on obstacles, kill passion by focusing on problems, kill gratitude by focusing on what's missing instead of what God already gave. And if you're not careful, their mindset becomes your internal soundtrack, and you start living in a world where miracles feel unrealistic, change feels impossible, and progress feels temporary. You begin to mirror their language, their posture, their hopelessness, thinking you're just being cautious, when in reality you're being spiritually suffocated. God cannot elevate someone who is handcuffed to a voice that constantly drags their expectation back to the ground. You can't step into breakthroughs while listening to people who only see breakdowns. You can't walk in promise while walking beside people who worship problems. And deep down, you already know who drains you, who dims you, who depletes you, who leaves you feeling smaller and heavier every time you walk away. You keep making excuses. A person who can't control their tongue will eventually use it against you. And the most unsettling part is that you can already feel the instability in every conversation. The subtle digs disguised as jokes. The half-truth sprinkled into stories. The way they talk about everyone else as if confidentiality is optional and loyalty is flexible. You keep telling yourself they'd never do that to you. But what you're ignoring is the spiritual law. A reckless tongue has no allegiance. Someone who gossips for you will gossip about you. Someone who exposes others will eventually expose you. Someone who bends the truth will one day bend it to your destruction. And it never starts with outright betrayal. It starts with small breaches you shrug off, moments you excuse, comments you chalk up to stress or personality. But every time you excuse a loose tongue, you're training your spirit to ignore danger. God warns about talkers because they destroy reputations long before they destroy relationships, and their words create wounds you don't see until the damage is already done. Their whispers can kill opportunities. Their exaggerations can distort how people see you. Their complaints can sabotage doors God opened for you, and all while they smile in your face as if they've been nothing but supportive. People who can't control their mouths are not just careless, they are spiritually unpredictable. They carry the kind of chaos that follows them everywhere, because their words stir conflict, breed confusion, and turn peace into tension without them ever lifting a finger. And you've been walking beside someone like that, hoping you'll be the exception, hoping you've earned enough grace or loyalty to be protected from their habits. But the truth is that nobody is safe when a person's weapon is their mouth. You've already seen how they twist stories to make themselves the victim, how they shift blame to avoid responsibility, how they exaggerate to gain sympathy, how they tear others down so they can feel taller. And deep inside, there's a voice telling you that the minute you stop being useful, convenient, or entertaining, that same tongue will rewrite your story to fit whatever narrative benefits them. God warns you so you don't confuse friendliness with faithfulness. A dangerous mouth doesn't need intention to cause harm. Damage is its natural byproduct. And the longer you stay close to someone who speaks recklessly, the more you risk becoming the next story they tell, the next character they distort, the next name they drag through conversations that were never meant for your ears. Anyone who refuses to change will eventually change you. And the terrifying part is that it doesn't happen with a loud explosion. It happens in quiet, almost invisible ways that erode your spirit while you tell yourself you're being patient, loyal, or compassionate. You've seen it already. The way their habits, excuses, fears, and limitations creep into your life, the subtle compromises you make just to keep the relationship comfortable, the pieces of yourself you've silenced so that their stagnation doesn't irritate you. And you justify it, thinking that endurance is virtue, that empathy is strength, that bending for them is love. But what you're actually doing is shrinking your vision, quieting your ambition, and diluting your fire. People who refuse growth are like spiritual quicksand. The longer you stay close, the more they pull you down to their level. And at first, you barely feel it, so you ignore the weight. You excuse their complaints, tolerate their patterns, swallow your own discomfort, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, your dreams begin to feel smaller, your courage softer, your standards negotiable. They will not rise with you because rising requires a willingness to change, and change is a threat to someone who refuses it. They will demand compromise instead of innovation, repetition instead of evolution, comfort instead of calling, and the more time you spend trying to carry them along, the more you will forget what it feels like to soar unencumbered. And the cruelest truth is that they don't see the damage. They are blind to the slow erosion of your spirit because they are focused only on preserving themselves. God warns you about these people not to punish you, but to protect the part of you that refuses to settle for mediocrity. Your destiny requires elevation, and elevation is impossible when someone's refusal to grow reshapes your mindset, dilutes your focus, and normalizes stagnation in your life. You can pray, plead, and tolerate, but tolerance is not salvation, and endurance is not protection. Every second spent accommodating their unwillingness is a second lost from building what God called you to build. And deep down, your soul already knows this truth, the truth your mind keeps avoiding, the truth your spirit feels in every frustrated sigh, every compromised dream, every suppressed vision. Staying attached to someone who refuses to change is spiritual self-sabotage, and the only way to honor your calling is to break free, to rise, to reclaim the parts of yourself that have been quietly reshaped to fit someone else's comfort, and to step into a life unchained by the limits of those who fear growth. The truth is brutal. Not everyone around you belongs in your life, and God didn't put you here to babysit fear, mediocrity, or deception disguised as friendship. Every person who drains, doubts, excuses, gossips, or resists growth is a chain, and every chain you tolerate is a chain you place on your own destiny. Stop pretending you can fix them. Stop rationalizing their influence, and stop shrinking yourself for their comfort. The life God designed for you is too urgent, too important, too powerful to be delayed by anyone who refuses to rise with you. Cut the ties that dim your spirit. Confront the people who poison your peace, and refuse proximity to those who sabotage your calling. Your future doesn't wait, and neither should you. The moment to act is now, because every second you hesitate, every excuse you make, every compromise you swallow is a victory for stagnation over your purpose. Stop negotiating with destruction disguised as loyalty. Step back, step away, and reclaim the space, energy, and clarity you were born to command. No more tolerating, no more shrinking, no more being trapped by those who refuse to elevate. Decide today. Either you rise uncompromised or you stay chained, and God doesn't call you to chains. Good luck, make it count. Thank you for your effort and dedication. It doesn't go unnoticed.